Again, I'm Ron Upshaw from Ron and Don Radio. You can find us ronandon.com. Also, we're with Windermere Real Estate, so don't hesitate to reach out if you need to, ron at windermere.com. So let's jump back into our next featured speaker. On April 14th, 2020, headline on Forbes.com reads, "How to be more compassionate during coronavirus crisis. Now more than ever, we all need to both give and receive compassion. But what can compassion create?" Our next speaker, Mark Brown, the 1995 world champion of public speaking, will ask and answer that question in his keynote presentation, Compassion Creates. Please help me welcome Mark Brown.
It is so good to see so many smiling faces on a Saturday. But sometimes we don't smile that much. I can recall a particular wintry day. I was living in New York State at the time, in White Plains. I was working there, and I was walking down the street, and I slipped on black ice. I fell, and I bumped my chin on the pavement. It was lunchtime, and the streets were busy, very busy. I was stunned, and I stayed down. And I noticed people kept walking, just kept walking. I tried to compose myself, and somebody said, "Sir, are you okay?" I said, "No, I'm not." And they walked away. They kept walking. I slowly picked myself up and groggily made my way back to my office. I went to the men's room, checked myself out, and I was only slightly bruised on the chin. But the bruise to my chin was a lot less painful than the bruise to my spirit. I have this belief that human beings can really be good, especially to those who are having a misfortune or a difficult time. And we've heard the word compassion defined several times today. And there's one particular phrase I like. I looked several definitions up, and this one really got to my spirit. It said, deep compassion for an awareness, deep awareness for the suffering of others, coupled with, get this, a deep desire to alleviate it. It's a deep awareness of someone else's situation, but it's coupled with a deep desire to alleviate it, to provide relief. And I encountered three kinds of people: those who didn't even care, those who looked and kept going, and those who asked questions but never really followed up. Perhaps they thought it was the courteous thing to do. "Are you okay? Are you okay? You okay? You okay? Sure." It's almost like a regular conversation. "How you doing? How you doing? How you doing? How you doing?" But do we ever stop to ask and wait for the answer? "How are you doing?" No, how are you really doing? And I've had a very strange experience. I do not mean to make myself out to be a hero, friends, but I can remember asking people, "How you doing?" "I'm okay." "How you really doing?" "Well, not so good." And they were shocked that I would actually ask a second time. So I guess my first thought is, as a society, as a nation, as a world, have we become sort of numb to what really goes on around us? And it really made me think. And if I were to offer you any thoughts on compassion today, I'll tell you one thing compassion is not. Compassion is not callous. Because in that moment, I felt like, wow, nobody cares about a guy who could have hurt himself. What if I had a concussion? Didn't anybody even care? And sadly, at that time, in that moment, that's how I felt. And I must confess, it's not the first time I've thought about this. Now, those who have seen my winning Toastmaster speech contest, and if you'd like to, you can watch the YouTube video. I myself, I do have the VHS videotape to prove it happened. Yes, I do have VHS. That was 25 years ago. And there's one particular story I tell, a true story of a New York reporter, Pat Harper, who was doing a story on the homeless. And to appreciate their circumstance, she dressed as they dressed. She walked as they walked, and she lived as they lived. And the camera crew followed her everywhere she went. And I still remember it being Christmas time. It was snowing, it was cold, and she was huddled in a doorway, and hardly anybody noticed her. Some went right by her as they went right by me. And in my speech, I say, some looked right at her and yet right past her. Others looked right through her as they thought, homeless, useless, worthless. And that day, I felt that people passed me by. And one of my concerns is that we don't realize how callous a lack of compassion can be. And sometimes we don't realize it because we're not really dealing with what other people have to face. It's funny. While working in White Plains, New York, during the 80s and 90s, I had a second experience that really made me think about the callousness that humans exhibit without being aware of the power of our compassion. I was in the office one day, it was after hours, and I was going down the hallway, and one of our managers, I'll call him Frederick, had his door open, and he was involved in a very animated conversation. Now, I won't say I was eavesdropping, but I was walking by very slowly, and I overheard him in the process of directing an employee to release somebody on their team. It wasn't that he had to fire someone, it was the manner in which he did it. I heard him say, listen, we got to get this guy out of here. I don't care what. Find somebody to do the job. I don't want to hear anything about compassion or anything like it. Just get him out and get somebody else in. Do it. Hung the phone up. I kept walking, but again, my spirit was wounded. His choice of words, and we are Toastmasters, we use words well. His choice of words and his attitude spoke to me. I don't want to hear anything about compassion or anything like that. I don't care. Get him out of there and get somebody else in. Now, in life, sometimes our jobs change. I've been released. I've been flat fired before. I know what it's like. But the idea was he had no concern for this gentleman's situation, his wife, his family, his children. Believe me, I understand, because in my 20s, I was a supervisor in an IT shop in White Plains, New York. I had a crew of 5 people. And one day my manager came in, a senior vice president, told me, Mark, listen, we're going to clean house. I'm going to give you a brand new team. I said, so what do you mean? He said, he was shorter than I was. He said, well, he said, we need a new crew. We're going to get a brand new team for you. We're going to move on. I'll take care of it. But what about Sam? Sam was an immigrant like me from an Asian country. He was diligent, and I knew if I had particular work to do, we called it simple program maintenance. He got it done. Sam got the job done. Wife, kids, heavy accent. I knew, and I said, what about Sam? I'm sorry, he's got to go too. And I recall vividly when Sam walked out that afternoon. He just said, okay, I'm leaving now, bye. And he walked away. I never saw him again, but my heart again hurt for a man I knew had come, like me, as an immigrant to a foreign country, trying to provide for his family. And those who don't know my story, I was 18 when I left Jamaica to come to America. I had 2 suitcases of clothes. I had $40. That was my life. So I had compassion for a man with a family whose life was going to change. Does that make me a softie? Absolutely. I confess it in a moment. But that made me wonder, are we sometimes callous in the way we deal with people? And right now we're going through this COVID-19 crisis. And many of us here, I have no clue how you are personally impacted. I'm just thankful. Over almost 300 people are here today. I appreciate you supporting your district in this way. But many of us, if we reveal our truth, will say, Mark, you know what? For me, this conference is an outlet because life right for me now is tough. I haven't been to work in 2 months. My salary was cut. My job was cut. My home with the kids. I'm going through stuff. And my truth is, I could use a helping hand. I could use a smile. I could use a phone call. And trust me, I know. You know, I'm so thankful to get the respect of so many people around the world as a world champion speaker. But the truth is, as a keynote speaker, I have done 0 keynotes this year. I'm not complaining. I'm simply sharing with you. I can appreciate that many of us go through difficult times. But still, we're here. We're here together. We're learning together. We're growing together. And we're sharing together. And it may be tough for us too. But here's a cool thing. And I believe I'm surrounded, well, at least I'm facing people who are full of compassion. Compassion is not callous, but I love this. Compassion has antennae. Say, what? Yeah, compassion has antennae. The antennae are up, the feelers are out. Compassion senses what's happening around us and is more aware. I think compassion creates awareness. Compassion creates awareness of what's happening to people around us, people in our neighborhood, people in our homes. Compassion creates awareness of what's happening with people in our district, in our division, in our area, and in our clubs. And here's the cool part about true compassion. It says deep awareness and a willingness to alleviate it. What I love about Toastmasters, and I went to my first Toastmasters meeting in December of 1992. And I'm still a card-carrying, dues-paying member of Toastmasters. I was blessed to win best table topic at my club's virtual meeting a couple of Mondays ago, okay? And I know that the willingness to alleviate it in the Toastmasters world, despite our discomfort, we are aware of the discomfort, the suffering, and pain of those around us. I believe Toastmasters is truly a tribe, truly a family. I see people come to my club because their boss told them, you have to learn to speak better. I remember in my class, I called her Denise. Denise came, she was timid, and she knew she had hit her ceiling at work. Her manager told her to get a promotion, she had to be a better communicator. And if anyone qualified to be a mouse, not meaning to put anybody down, but Denise was that reserved. After a couple of years of being in our club, being coaxed and guided and supported, getting the kinds of evaluations that my dear friend Balraj Arunasalam gave that Toastmaster in India that day, she blossomed, she bloomed, she became a club officer, and she gained the promotion she had worked for because our small club, 15 people, rallied around her compassionately and said, let's help you to achieve your goal for your career. That's what Toastmasters does. Now, hopefully on your screens, you have a chance to do a reaction with either a wave or a thumbs up. Be honest. If you've ever seen or encountered someone in your club or your area, your division or your district who had to accept a responsibility and they were flat terrified, give me a wave or a thumbs up. If that was you, do both. Okay. Can you remember a time when the individuals in your club, your area, your district rallied around that person, told them you can do it and showed them how, and it made a difference? You know what? I bet if you were to ask every district officer right now in the district what their journey has been like and ask them, was there ever a time when you were cautious, afraid, aware, or doubted yourself? There's Roxy, she's going, me right away. But the people in our district were aware that she needed guidance. Compassion creates a level of awareness that says, okay, I want to do whatever I can to be supportive of the individuals who are in my tribe, who are in my neighborhood. And sometimes you don't need to have a really strong relationship yet. It's just the awareness, someone could use my hand. Someone could use my help. So compassion says, let's help. And in the Toastmasters world, it's often a struggling club. Anybody here ever seen a club struggle? And we have club mentors, club specialists who come in and say, let me help this club to thrive. Maybe you want to help an individual who, as our dear friend Deepak says, had a difficult evaluation. Now, I gotta be honest, we're humans and we don't all think alike. Some humans don't understand that word selection has a really powerful impact on our emotional response. For example, I have a dear friend in New York, and she was our drama teacher for our youth group at our church. And to her, words are simply a tool to convey a point, whereas she does not ascribe emotion to words. For example, someone has an idea for marketing for the club, and they approach a club president and say, listen, I got an idea to market our club. It's going to be great, and here it is. Now, let's say club president Gerald says, you know what? I like where you're going with this, but a couple of things would have to get tweaked for this to really work. You might want to work on that and get back to me. Now, by show of hands, could you handle a response like that if someone told you, yeah, work on a couple of things? Okay, maybe. Okay. Now, But my friend back in New York, her words would be, that's never going to work. You got to fix this. It's not going to work. And walk away. Emotionally, some people can take it. Others can't. And that's why I really appreciate President Deepak's story of the evaluation that almost sent somebody out the door. We are Toastmasters. We have the power of language. We have to ascribe the emotional impact on our words. And when our words speak compassion, backed up by our actions, we can literally, pardon the cliche, change someone's life. And we have the power of using our compassion and the words that we say, the smiles on our faces. And sometimes the coolest thing is our compassion can manifest in silence. Have you ever just wanted someone to be there for you and just listen to you? And okay, husbands, let me just get you right now. I mean, I'm a husband. Okay, I'm learning this thing. Let's see, we're in last April 17, 1 month ago tomorrow was my 38th wedding anniversary. And people ask me, thank you for the applause, virtual applause, I love that. People ask, Mark, what's your secret? I said, simple, 2 words, yes, dear. And my wife and I laugh. But thank you, Christopher, I love that. But get this, I learned a long time ago, that I, as a man, believed the responsibility of being a husband and father, and I pray, God, help me to be the husband my wife deserves. I want to fix things. And I learned a long time ago, sometimes all she wants me to do is shut up, sit there, and listen to her talk to me. To her, that's the most compassion I will show in the moment. But I go back to my first point. Compassion creates awareness. Understanding of the people who we work with, who we serve with, who we meet with every single day. And if we are truly compassionate, our Toastmaster experience should not be limited to a once-a-week meeting. But I found I've built relationships through Toastmasters. I have gained family. I have Toastmaster friends around the world who call my wife Mama Annie and call me Papa Mark. They're young people, it's okay. But it's the relationship we build by being aware of what people are going through and supporting them and loving them. So compassion creates awareness of the people in our world. Compassion asks a couple of questions. Compassion says, okay, can I help? The answer is yes. Then compassion says, okay, how can I help? And whom can I help? Can I help? How can I help? Whom can I help? That gets real nitty-gritty here. Whom can I help? I mentioned the Toastmaster who's struggling. I mentioned the club. Guess what? We can even help the leaders. Say, what? Well, they're the leaders. They're in charge. They're more experienced than we are. You have no idea what leaders struggle with every single day. Trying to plan a virtual conference for 300 people, Donna and Co. And I mean that from my heart. Earlier this week, I did a program for a division in Nepal. They had over 1,000 registrations, and they planned that program in 5 days. I respect every leader who goes through the stress of planning events, planning contests, doing all the area visits. What you do is amazing, and we need to offer you some grace, cut you some slack, and show compassion, because you've got your families, you've got your struggles, you've got your lives to deal with. And very often we become somewhat self-absorbed in our situation. And I confess that could happen to me too. But we're a tribe. We're fellow Toastmasters. And we ask, can I help in some small way? How can I help? Whom can I help? You know what? We're now doing all these virtual meetings. Here's one where you could help a Toastmaster. Well, let me back up. Okay, I'll rewind that. Let's change the question. Thank you so much for that. We're doing virtual meetings. And as a professional speaking coach, I'm doing webinars every week on virtual presentations. I'm doing a 2-day workshop this next week, Wednesday, Thursday, with my buddy Darren LaCroix, world champion, and Ed Tate, world champion, on the idea of virtual presentations. People come to us and say, I don't know what to do. I get so nervous. I got to face an audience. It's bad enough being in real person. And I'm like, calm down, breathe, hug yourself, okay? Just relax, some self-compassion here. but people are really, really scared about this. Here's an idea for you. How can you help? Practical thought. We're using Zoom right now, and Zoom has free platforms. What if for that nervous 10-year Toastmaster friend or club member who's terrified of this, what if you arrange, 3 or 4 of you, arrange a private personal Zoom meeting and get them accustomed to using the platform? Let them lead, let them give a speech, teach them how to focus on the camera, not over here the whole time while they're talking. Simple things like that. Be encouraging and guide them in the same way you would guide them physically in person, guide them in the process right here. It's a simple, practical tool. I'm going to put you on the spot. I can only see like 50 at one time, but who's willing to do even that for a club member who's afraid to arrange a Zoom for them? Exactly. It's not that hard. Compassion is aware, and compassion says, how can I help? Who can I help? And compassion says, when can I help? Here's the answer. When is now? When is today? Compassion creates a feeling that even when I'm going through my mess, if I can help you get through your mess, it's quite possible we'll do it together. Compassion creates awareness. Compassion asks, can I help? Compassion asks, whom can I help? Compassion asks, how can I help? But compassion also creates something else. Compassion creates collaboration. Yeah, see, when we're compassionate for each other, we try to find ways to do things together. We say, okay, not only whom can I help, we also ask, with whom can I help? And I'm really pleased to hear you're doing some of these things already. Not everyone does. So pass it on, encourage others, share with them. With whom can I help? What can we do together? What can we do together as a collective to really make a difference, not only in our Toastmasters world, but in the world we live in? I know I mentioned that Toastmasters and compassion is not callous. And I talked about falling on my face and getting a bruise, and that was bad. I felt compassion many years ago when I was working as a computer programmer for a bank in New York. My manager's name was Mike. I called him Pops because we have the same birthday, August 17. And Mike was a really, really good manager. He understood me and my family. And I'm a mushball, wife and 3 kids. I'm a really mushball guy. At the time, I had only 2 children. It was in 1992. And our bank was going through a takeover/merger. And being in the IT department, my responsibility was to prepare all the customer files for what they call unit testing and then system testing to convert all our bank records to the new host bank. Being Jamaican, I said, no problem, man. I can do this. You know what I mean? We had a definite schedule. I almost said schedule there. A definite schedule for testing and for delivering of files. It was March. My mother passed away at a time when I was in the middle of all of this, but I was trying to be a diligent worker and I was ahead of my testing schedule. I had to leave New York and go with my wife and 2 children to West Palm Beach, Florida to say my final farewells. And I told Mike, and he was very understanding. He said, Mark, listen, you take care of your family. That's the most important thing. You've done good work. You're ahead of schedule. Whatever you need, I'm only a phone call away. I could have hugged the guy. He was so awesome, awesome boss. Mike Cooper, he was. And I was off in Florida to say farewell. My brother, my sister, our families, my kids, my wife. And as you all know, saying goodbye to a loved one is never easy. But having family there, being together, loving on each other was so precious. And the third day I was there, I got a telephone call from the office. I said, what? And it was Mike. And I could tell his heart was heavy. He said, Mark, I'm really, really sorry to call you, but the receiving bank had sent us a note and they were wanting to know about the testing results and the files you were going to prepare for us. I said, well, as you know, Mike, I've done the testing and I'm ahead of schedule and I'll get the files to them on schedule when I get back in 7 days as our schedule requires. He says, yeah, I get it. But they called me to ask about the files. And I told them you had gone to say goodbye to your mother. What happened, Mike? He was silent for a long time. He said, the manager said, oh, his mother's passed away. He's going to the funeral. Okay. But where are my files? I said, Mike, thanks. I'll see you in 4 days. I'm not sure how to describe how that felt. But the good news was the pain of this company being so unfeeling. And here's the cool part. It was 1992. We're in a recession. I had a choice to stay with the company or quit. I chose to quit in a recession because of the lack of compassion of the leaders. Now, was I the best programmer in the world? I don't believe so. I did a pretty good job. But they lost the benefit of my services that day because they were unwilling to see a bigger picture. And Michael, thank goodness for Mike. Mike was a man who showed compassion, and he and the team rallied around me to encourage me in the midst of my pain. And things when compassion creates collaboration, not only will one person come to your aid or 3 or 5, you have that tribe. You are that tribe, 300 strong today, who will come to the aid of somebody who's in need. Now, I don't know. I have no clue, no idea what you're dealing with personally right now during this COVID-19 season. I don't need to address the elephant in the room. We're all going through this. And I really appreciate what Ron said earlier. You know, it's easy to not realize it when you have your food, you have your bills paid, you have a position, you have what you need. It's not a big deal, you know, to you. And I've heard so many people say, well, shelter in place. Well, we can't shelter in place. It's hard to stay in one place with my kids. And people say, hey, what do you mean? You shouldn't be outside. You better go in and stay with your family. What's wrong with you? But for some person, maybe somebody in this group today, being inside means being in an apartment with a spouse and 3 or 4 kids who have to go and do their schoolwork. You're trying to do multitasking, and being in a home, in an apartment with a family of 5 for a week, 2, 4, 8 weeks is difficult, but we don't think to realize what they're going through. And I love what St. Francis of Assisi said in his prayer. He said, God, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love, for it is in giving that we receive. Stephen Covey quoted that in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, when he said, seek first to understand, then to be understood. But I like what St. Francis of Assisi says, first to console, then to be consoled. First to understand, then to be understood. First to love, then to be loved. And I will confess, after almost 30 years of being in Toastmasters, that pretty much has been the experience I have had when people want to support, want to love, want to help, want to guide, and want to support. I say again for a reason, don't take lightly the burdens that your leaders carry with dignity, with strength, with all the effort they can despite their circumstance. And yes, Maria, that was St. Francis who first said it. Stephen Covey kind of took it from him. You know, do we see people? I go back to the first point I made. Compassion creates awareness. And this is the key. If our antennae are up, we'll see people. I have a coaching client who said to me this week, and she used the word tribe. I'm part of this tribe, but I don't feel like it because I don't believe people see me. So here's a challenge for all of you. If I point to you, I've got fingers pointing at me, old cliche, but here's the idea. Do I see my fellow Toastmasters? Have I built the kind of relationship that says, I can't wait to get together with you again. I can't wait to do a live meeting one of these days. Do we see our fellow Toastmasters beyond the meeting room or beyond the business of what we do? Do we have the kind of relationships that we can have that really creates an atmosphere where we can have a heart-to-heart? Leaders, I did commend you. And I want to share a thought with you that I learned from a leader, the company I went to work for back in 1998. His name is Tom. A sales organization, and I was hired to give speeches around the country to inspire people. And Tom had over 300 salespeople. They told me Tom would call each one on their birthday personally. Woo! I heard about Tom. I'd only been with the company a couple of weeks, and Tom had hired me. Tom actually created my job to bring me in. And on a Friday afternoon, it was half a day, summer hours, and my wife and son, who was maybe 4 years old or 3 years old, came to visit me in the office before we went off for the afternoon. And Tom was running out of the office, out of his office, and he was carrying a big old folder like this one, going to a meeting. And Tom is 6'4", 300 pounds, a monster of a man. And he came on, hey, Mark, good to see you. Hey, Tom, good to see you. Mark, who's this? Oh, Tom, my wife, Andrea. And wait, and who are you, young man? My son, David. I'm David. How old are you, David? I'm 3. Says, David, do you like toys? Uh-huh. Hey, come here for a second. And this massive hulk of a man, Tom, 6'3", 300 pounds, brings my son into his office. And I look at his assistant. I said, she go, I peek in. And here is Tom, massive Tom, literally on the floor playing with my 3-year-old son for 3 minutes while the people in the conference room are waiting for 3 minutes, because he saw the value of not just connecting to me as his employee, but to my family as well. I said before, Toastmasters, I believe we're a tribe. I believe we're a family. And I believe compassion can be contagious as we lock arms together and decide who can we help in our club, in our area, in our district. Who have we not heard from for a while? Who could take a phone call, a text message, a FaceTime? We could even use a new messenger room concept. Don't need to get a Zoom room, get a messenger room. Who can we collaborate with? Who can we talk to? Can we find out what's going on with them? What's your follow-up strategy? What are your best practices? Share those with each other across area, club, division, district, and strengthen the tribe that you have. And maybe the idea of compassion being less callous becomes real or even more real to all of us. And maybe somebody falls who we don't even know. And beyond asking, are you okay? We'll ask again, are you really okay? And how can I help? Think of your club members who you've not seen for a week, a month, or 2. What's their story? What are they dealing with? What could a phone call make a difference at the end of this conference today? Could a text message make a difference? Could a FaceTime make a difference? Who's the individual who was on the pathway, pun intended, but somehow seemed to have frozen for a while, who was not moved on? What's his or her story? And maybe as you listen to their story, as you listen to them, they'll listen to you. And you'll strengthen the bond of relationship one-on-one, and slowly, as a tribe experiences it, it becomes that much more different. I don't know where you are right now in your lives, but I'm so thrilled you're all here today. I think it's unusual, wonderfully unusual, that you would choose as a conference theme a word like compassion, because that means so much to so many people in so many ways during this particular time in our nation's history and in our world's history. And I thank you again, Ron, for making us aware that sometimes we're comfortable and we don't realize what other people are dealing with. And if you are going through a difficult time, I hope you feel such strength from your tribe, you won't be ashamed or afraid to say, hey, can I get a hand? Because I know there is no shame in asking for help when you really need it. There is no embarrassment in asking for support, especially when the support is going to come from your tribe. So I'll leave you with this thought, which struck me after many, many years. I first competed back in 94. In 95, I was competing at the district level of my contest. And I gave a speech it was based upon a song I heard many, many years ago by a woman named Alma Androzzo, an old gospel song. And it's called, If I Can Help Somebody. And the words are simply this: if I can help somebody as I pass along, if I can cheer somebody with a word or a song, if I can show somebody he is traveling wrong, then my living shall not be in vain. Then my living shall not be in vain, then my living shall not be in vain. If I can help somebody as I pass along, then my living shall not be in vain. Friends, compassion is not callous. Compassion creates awareness. Compassion creates collaboration. And finally, compassion can be contagious. I ask you, I urge you, I implore you, share your heart of compassion, the true Toastmaster's heart. And may it spread like contagion, like a pandemic, in a positive way throughout District 2, as you all live this one central truth, that compassion creates life for us all. My honor, my joy, my pleasure serving you. Have a blessed day. Be wise, sanitize, dream big, and work bigger. Blessings to you all.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Man, you were already giving a great speech, and then you had to lay on the singing at the end. It's not fair. It's not fair.
Use what you got, man. Use what you got.
Absolutely. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it. I'm going to be thinking about your speech all day long, as I know a lot of other folks will be. That was really, really, I can see why you are a world champion. So much respect.
Thank you. I must take my leave. I have an event to do very shortly, but thank you, Donna and company, Roxy, Ron, everyone. Thank you so much for the honor. I wish you massive blessings. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Mark.